Reverend Father Ludovic Lado, it's great speaking with you. Good evening.
Good evening, Angie.
Tchiroma'S spokesperson this evening, Alison Combe, has announced 3 days of lockdown in all the regions of the country as from Sunday, 30th of November, to run right up until the 2nd of December, which will be joining a strategy that Anglophones or the secessionist guild of the Anglophone conflict have used for over 7 years now. But prior to that, last week, Friday, Tchiroma had announced a national day of mourning for that day. What are your thoughts about his strategy?
Well, again, I have my doubts about how successful that can be, basically because, ghost towns, means a price to pay for poor people because many people live on a daily basis. And of course, we try, or Cameroonians try ghost towns at the beginning of this post-electoral crisis, immediately after, the public protests. Those were quite successful, but I'm afraid we have lost the momentum for ghost towns because, again, my idea or my understanding of any revolution like the one we want to achieve is that you have to press on and seize the momentum to press on until these guys are out of power. But I also understand that he has been on the run. In a sense, on the move to be kind. He has been on the move trying to settle somewhere. Now, so my doubts are basically around the issue of can Cameroonian, the ordinary Cameroonian, put up with 3 days of ghost towns? Again, I'm still to know what is the purpose of the ghost town, basically, because if it is to continue to pressure this illegitimate government to fall. Well, I don't know how that's going to help into it. To getting to that objective. So I have my doubts about how that's going to be successful. And again, just to end on that, we had the National Day of mourning for the dead ones. Of course, that's a noble idea, but I'm not sure it was as successful as the first few days of protest and even ghost towns were. So we have to learn from that and come up probably with better strategies there.
Were you expecting more from him when he came out last week to ask for a National Day of Mourning 10 days after his 48-hour ultimatum to the BR regime and his threat to opt for self-defense if the regime did not cave into his demands? Were you expecting more?
Yeah, obviously, because, again, you are a leader of a resistance movement or a revolution movement. You give an ultimatum of 48 hours. And actually, going on to say, if you don't abide by what I'm asking or expecting from you, then we are going to, resist. Then and then after 48 hours, nothing. And my fear is that, these, when you look at how Atanganji is behaving these days, it's almost like she's comfortable. It's almost like and they are moving around, arresting, leaders, at least at the grassroots level, those who resisted or sided for Tchiroma or with Tchiroma, and these guys are going to jail. And again, what are we doing as a resistance movement or a revolution movement to get these guys out? There's nothing happening. So I would have thought that he would seize the momentum. And again, as my understanding of this revolutionary movement is that you have to get people on the street. Again, some people are opposed to it because they say it's violent, it is killing people. But you can't bring down a tree, a big tree with a knife. I mean, there is no clean revolution. I mean, somebody is going to pay the price. And I've not seen any government like that one go down, fall without any serious, without some people paying the price. So I'm not sure ghost towns will do that. But again, I hope he has a rationale behind it.
The Gambian government officially issued a statement telling us or informing the world that Issa Tchiroma is effectively on their soil since the 7th of November, but for humanitarian reasons exclusively, and they did not intend for their soil to be used as a base for anyone to carry out subversive acts towards another country. This outing gave you the opportunity, I would say, to severely criticize Issa Tchiroma, and you mentioned, without mincing words, that a revolution cannot be carried out by playing buddy-buddy with the political bourgeoisie, as you called it. But you also said he was on the run, and political pundits actually, enunciate the de Gaulle example of France, who fled to the French general who fled to England in 1940 and turned down his government's armistice offer with Nazi Germany when Paris fell. Do you think that? Is it personal? Your criticism, is it personal to Issa Tchiroma, or you just think altogether it is not possible to lead a revolution from out of the place where the heat is?
Well, I just don't see how he's going to do it. Again, he is now, almost like a refugee in the country. I mean, he is in Gambia as a refugee. That's what it means when you are talking about humanitarian reason. He's a refugee in Gambia. And the Gambia government has clearly said that she can't use Gambia. I mean, they can't accept that Gambia be used as a base to destabilize another country, which makes sense. I had written that at least 10 days or even 14 days ago, that no African country can allow Tchiroma to use the country as a base to destabilize. It's diplomatic. That's why I was saying, if he wants a safe country where he can continue to lead the revolution, he should go to Europe. Now, his main collaborators are in prison. Now, I mean, and I don't know how he's strategizing. I hope again but I'm doubting that he really knows what to do with this revolution. And so it is not it's not a personal attack directed at him. It is simply trying to be rational. I mean, common sense. When people compare Tchiroma to, I've seen two comparisons come up in this case. The first one is that they compare Tchiroma to de Gaulle. But we are talking here, de Gaulle was a general. And they have an army of resistance. Tchiroma hasn't got any. He's counting on the loyalty of Cameroonians at the grassroots to continue to follow his instructions or directives. But this is not, he can't take it for granted. So General de Gaulle actually, fled, to England, and England was an ally, And so they were simply regrouping to be able to push back on the opponents. But Tchiroma hasn't got an army. So you can't, I just don't understand how people can compare Tchiroma to General de Gaulle. The second comparison I have heard is that, Gambia went through a similar situation. And that Adama Barrow, yes, he was sworn in Senegal. And then, again, look at you can't compare things which cannot be compared. Adama Barrow had this. I mean, first of all, Yahya Jammeh had acknowledged his defeat before changing his mind. And then Adama Barrow was the challenger, had the support of what we usually call the international community, including the neighboring Senegal, where he retreated and was sworn in. Where do you see a similar scenario with Tchiroma? So that's why I could be wrong, but I stand to be corrected by time or with time, with the events to come. I just think that he was wrong in leaving the country. He should have even accepted to be arrested. And that's where my comments on running a revolution with a political bourgeoisie come in.
Don't you think he was studying? Don't you think he studied the 2018 presidential election and told himself that being arrested could lead to an equal demobilization like we saw in 2018 when Maurice Kamto claimed victory as well, went down in the streets, but finally after Atanganji's threats at the end of 2018, went ahead to execute what he was threatening to do, put him in jail, and the mobilization did not suffice to unseat the Biya regime. Don't you think he simply just took a playbook out of the last Biya adversaries and decided that, hey, I wanted to make some edits here just because he felt that he would have more freedom in the short term to maneuver?
Yeah, that could be. I mean, again, I'm not saying I'm right, he's wrong. I'm simply saying that, well, I think there was probably another way of dealing with this situation. I'm not trying to claim. I'm not claiming to have a clear-cut answer to how he should have been.
But Father Lado, do you think he had the funds? Do you think he had the necessary funds to carry out, to mobilize for a revolution, as you are calling it?
Well, you know, when Tchiroma left the government, I don't know if you remember one interview he gives. He said, I'm no longer hungry. My children or my family is not hungry, and they will never be hungry again. So I do believe that he has the resources to live. I mean, at least him as Tchiroma. I don't think that his 20 plus years in government left him poor. I don't think so. But what I'm trying to say is that I do understand that he was taken by surprise, even by the outcome of the elections. I don't think the day he resigned, he expected to be in the position where he is today. So he was taken by surprise by the fact that, of course, we understand the landscape of the political landscape in Cameroon. When they excluded arbitrarily Kamto, people were looking for a somebody to hold on to. And it happened that Tchiroma was the only one who could basically bring the voices or the votes from the north. And I think it was a good move from the people to say, let's vote Tchiroma so that we can kind of politically unite the grassroots resistance to Biya from the north to the south to the littoral, and because that is something Tchiroma had this time that Kamto did not have. Kamto did not have the north. So I still think that, well, again, moving outside of the country maybe was, well, maybe again he was trying to avoid the mistakes of the 2018, but it's not solving anything. It's not helping at all. If at all that was his idea, because the revolution or the resistance is simply dying out. That's my feeling about it. It is simply dying out because we have lost the momentum. And they're cracking down on those who at the grassroots were mobilizing. So now he's calling for another 3 days of ghost town. Well, you think that the women, those poor women who sell in the markets, will be able to close their shops for 3 days, especially as Christmas is approaching? I don't know. I wish they could do that to keep the resistance going, because I think now my understanding of it is that they're playing now on a long-term strategy. Well, the ruling regime, that's what they like, long-term strategy. And so they will buy time and then continue to do their things. So, well, let's see what happens. But I'm very skeptical about its strategy. And the fact that, this is probably one last thing I want to say about this is that, well, she went on to appoint Barrister Alice Com as his spokesperson in Cameroon. Well, this is a well-respected figure, and I don't think anybody has any problem with that idea or with that move. But again, I still feel that besides Barrister Alice Com, he should have somebody in the diaspora. Because again, Barrister Alice Com, well, I'm not sure she can do much. I think if she called a press conference today to speak in the name of Tchiroma, they will stop it. That's obvious. They may not arrest her, but they will stop it anyway. I don't see anything she can do about that. So yeah.
No, I just wanted to move on to the Catholic Church, since you are a Jesuit priest. Pope Leo is announced in Cameroon, and civil society organizations have come out to tell him to press pause until he has carried out investigations as to who the true winner of the presidential election was. And this leads me to ask you, do you think, first of all, what does one expect when a figure like that comes to Cameroon, the Vicar of Christ comes to Cameroon? What do we expect? Pressure on the Biya regime to resolve the Anglophone crisis, for instance, or is it just a diplomatic window dressing mission?
Well, that's what I think, that it's a diplomatic window dressing machine. Because, again, let's just mention the Anglophone crisis. Know that when the Anglophone crisis started, the Anglophone bishops wrote a memorandum with clear proposition on how to move on the crisis. They sent it to Biya. And they actually, asked for an appointment to meet with Biya. They have never got it. And Biya simply pressed on with the repressive approach, and it led to where it led. And today you are talking about, the situation, the current situation in the Northwest, where priests and nuns are being arrested and held by these groups. Well, it is still the spillover of this crisis. Everybody is suffering from it. So I was actually one of the first to voice my concern about the Pope coming here. Coming to Cameroon, now that we are struggling with a post-electoral crisis. And I felt that, and again, it's the case with a number of other people, that this government is just out to use this visit to legitimate itself, in a sense. Of course, as you were asking, asking the question about what is the ultimate goal of a visit, a papal visit like that, it is obviously first pastoral. He's coming to, encourage or encourage Christians or Catholics in their faith. And generally they don't like to to put pressure on government. When they can do it, they would rather do it, the Catholic and institutional Catholic Church siding or, supporting and we saw, historically it was also the case with the French Revolution. After the French Revolution in France, the church suffered, the Catholic Church suffered a lot because it was considered as part of this system or the oppressive system. But there are also many other cases where the Catholic Church has paid the pricing of opposing repressive regime, especially in countries in Latin America where you have the theology of liberation. And if you want to even go back to Europe, during the pontificate of John Paul II, he was very instrumental in bringing down the communist system, which had, been very oppressive in his country. So I think that in Cameroon, the problem is that the bishops currently are not able to oppose this government together.
So the bishops are corrupt.
You have this Episcopal Conference, You have the same individual bishops speaking against the current situation, and most of the rest just keep quiet.
What do you think they fear?
And they know why they are keeping quiet.
What are they afraid of?
Well, I guess probably vested interest, obviously some have vested interest with some of these elite, with the ruling system, and they don't want to jeopardize it, and again, this government is so ruthless and wicked that they know how to come after particular bishops who are not aligned with them, and that's why many, even when they are not, when they are not happy with what is happening, they prefer to keep quiet. Those who are speaking, they are taking risk because you run school, you run hospitals, you go. Sometimes you need authorizations for them, you need papers, things like that. They can just quietly, be how to put it? Yes, be a nuisance to you. Yes, and so again, the Catholic Church for me now can be trusted as a group, as an institution. But I can still feel that a few will continue to speak up against the current situation, and my own problem with the current attitude of the Catholic Church, especially Episcopal Conference, is that they did observe elections. They did observe elections, and they came out with a letter signed by Bishop Kea, who is the Archbishop of Bamenda and the current president of the Episcopal Conference. He said in the letter that they observed elections at least in 12,000 plus, which means at least 40% of the polling stations. And it means that they have the results of those polling stations. But why are they not putting them out? That's something I am not really comfortable with, because it gives the impression that we are that the church is kind of aligning with the current regime, which doesn't give a good image, send a good image for the church, or at least the church in Cameroon.
We just spoke of, you just mentioned Archbishop Nkea, and in recent days he's been in the news for issuing a very fierce statement, threatening to shut down schools and Catholic institutions in the Ndop parish after the kidnapping of 6 a Catholic priest and a layman. 5 of them were released last week, and one of them is still being held captive, Reverend Father John Bernuy. What are your thoughts about this?
Of course, my thoughts and prayers are with the priest, the kidnapped priest, of course, and we pray that he gets out of there safe and but not only with priests. I mean, I guess this is the daily bread of the ordinary people in that region, that many get kidnapped and they're helpless, and they try to pay the ransom as much as they can. Some get killed. So that should be our concern, not just when priests are arrested. And so I would have expected that Bishop Kea would be as, forceful in coming out when it's not only priests arrested, but when other members of the community are in this kind of situation, because it gives the impression that the church only cares when its own people or guys are in trouble. And again, it is probably a wake-up call, because I read today that the group which arrested the priests and the nuns, and they were complaining that they feel the church has acted too close to being too close to the oppressing regime, and that they are not happy. They are not happy with that. And again, that's something I've been talking about. That you see, Bishop Kea was very quick in responding to Ngongo when he called them to Yaoundé for this, these consultations before the elections. They were there. A couple of them, at least 6 or 7 of them went to that meeting. I was skeptical about the move, but then I said, well, maybe they are, doing it in good faith. But then, after elections, people are complaining that the results, that they were rigged, and that Biya didn't win, and that. And you don't say anything. You don't say. It's almost like, that cry from the grassroots is not reaching them, or that they are not listening to that voice. Why can't you come out and say, well, let's look into this thing, this thing seriously, and make sure that the truth triumphs? Why are they not doing that? And so that gives the impression that they are aligned with the people in power, which may be wrong. Which may not be true. But that's the impression that the people get, and that's why I was very happy with the reaction of the congregation in the cathedral. If you, last week, I think so, or at least a few days ago, when people spontaneously told the nuncio off that, that don't call that name here. We don't want to hear that here. We are here for a religious service, not to do diplomacy. So, and even when the nuncio was going to Bamenda, he was escorted by all these special forces ostentatiously, and that doesn't give a good image, because he's going to a region where people live in insecurity every day. And you are coming here as a man of God, and you plainly show that, you are protected by the powers in place. And the end of people end up asking the question, on which side are you? You are. So again, I'm not happy with the kidnapping of priests, of course, or any other citizen of the country. And we should all do our best to get this problem solved, so that, people can live in peace, and the church has a role to play. And if the government is not open to the role of the church, why should we be laughing with them, smiling to them as if the country was well run? No, I think we should be a bit more, we should be tougher than what we have been as a church with the current regime.
Reverend Father Ludovic Lado, late last year in December of 2024, you announced your political ambitions, said that in the upcoming municipal and legislative elections, you were going to be a candidate, and you actually created a group or an organization called Servir, or to serve. I was told that the Episcopal Conference does not allow you to have political ambitions, but we wanted you to clarify and to tell us what's going on and if you still have those plans.
Well, of course, as a Cameroonian citizen, I am entitled to the same rights and duties as any Cameroonian, which means that I have the right to run for any elections if I have the means to do so. But of course, as a priest, I can't do partisan politics. What does that mean? It means that I cannot be a member of political party, and and I'm not a member of any political party, but I can be a member of civil society organization, and the groups serving we are talking about, or to serve, is still it's not yet a political party. It is still a civil society organization, which for me was a way of rallying Christian for, a responsible citizenship. Because you probably remember that when I was launching Servi, the idea was to mobilize Christians to register for the elections of the president, for elections, and to encourage Christians to not to be spectator in the political game or landscape, but to be committed political actor, motivated by Christian values. But unfortunately, I'm not saying all, unfortunately, most of those who are destroying the country claim to be Christians, including Atanganji, who is claimed to be Catholic. But I don't know exactly what that means. Because you can't forge paper to exclude a political opponent. You can't encourage a rigged election. You can't crack down on people asking for justice and say you are a Christian or Catholic. So, to cut the long story short, I did indeed say that I don't rule out the idea of being a candidate for the upcoming legislative and local elections. But at this point today, because I'm currently on a fellowship at Harvard University, which runs through, till the end of May. But whatever the case, I think it would be irresponsible for Cameroonians today to go for another cycle of elections under the same system. Meaning until they revise the electoral code, until they, how to put it, until they get rid of Eleka. I don't see why Cameroonians should rush for another election. Because what has changed? If you go for these elections and at the end of it, they rig again and they tell you that this one won when you won, what will you do?
But Father Lado, the opposition has been singing this song for decades. In 2011, opposition parties came together after the presidential election and were calling for an annulment. They met at the Monte-Anne Road UDC headquarters in Yaoundé. Frundi was there, and they were telling the government to annul the elections because it was fraught with rigging. It was not transparent. It wasn't free or fair, the presidential election of that year. They clamored for a new electoral code, and the one that seemed to emerge doesn't seem to meet the aspirations of the people. But still, politicians have continued to go in for the races, and the results have been the same. You speak of them not being interested in another presidential election, participating in another election, but you might want to know that regional elections are taking place on Sunday, and it looks like nothing is going to stop the government from organizing them.
Sure.
What is the work around when the electoral process is not free, not fair, and not transparent? After a 43-year stay in power of Mr. Biya, what is the workaround? What can Cameroonians do differently to see change that they say that they want?
Yes, that's why I was hoping. And that's why I say we have lost I don't know if we will have it another momentum like this one. I was hoping that even if we couldn't get this government down, we could at least, through the street, force this government to compromise at least on the issue of the reforms of some of these electoral institutions. So I was hoping that the problem also with the Cameroonian political class is that it is a fragmented, space, fragmented body, and people are out for their selfish interests. They don't care. So my problem is that this was the time, and of course some of them are still jealous that why did they go for Tchiroma, who had served this government so poorly for the past 20 years. Why people would go for him and not go for the traditional opposition leaders who were there. But they don't understand the momentum. People did not actually vote for Tchiroma. They voted against Biya. And Tchiroma was the only one who could give us the votes rally the votes from the north, and even from the north, the Anglophone region, and things like that. He happened to be the guy who could do that. And so people went for him not because they like him that much, but because they thought he was the only one who could do that. But I expected that he could use the momentum to pressurize the ruling system. But see how these guys trembled after the 3 days of successive protests in street. Of course, they were there, they killed, but they can't kill continuously for a week. And at least if they had said, okay, we listen to you, let's reform the electoral code, or at least Tchiroma would have said, no regional election, and if you try to do that, we destroy Elekam. That could have probably produced some results, at least at the level of reforming the electoral code and reforming Elekam. But as you just said, they are going ahead with their things because there's no more counter force in the ground. And I want to end by saying that, you see, when you read through the literature, true revolutions are always sustained by the grassroots. And these grassroots are most of the time the poorest of the poor. Middle class you hardly see middle class going to the streets. And that was the case with these elections, because those who were in the streets, they were youngsters, they were the poorest of these guys, and they were even ready at that time to close their shops for the things to change. Now, I understand that there are some stakeholders who are saying, there was violence, people were killed, and let's change the strategy by using passive resistance. Yeah, well, that's what Ghost Town is all about. But I'm not sure this regime will understand the language of Ghost Town, because in the North and South, people have been doing that every Monday. Do they care? So, again, I'm not claiming to have the right strategy, but I'm not seeing the one they are using now succeeding.
Father Lado, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Have a great evening.
And God bless you.
Amen. Thank you.